Hey y'all, welcome back to Andy and Barbara on the Creek. Today it's just me, Andy, and thought today I would share with you how I clean up my concentrates from the sluice box when we go out to the creek. So we're going to start with our nice little tub of water. I got a couple of pans in here. We're going to show you how to set up the blue bowl and go through that process and go from there. So let's get started. So if you recall from last time, we put all our concentrates in this happy little bucket. It was the good smelling cotton candy bucket. So how we're going to start this out is I'm going to classify these cons down to a 40 mesh screen. The stuff that's a 30 or 40 mesh or below is going to go into the blue bowl so that we can process the really tiny gold. The things that are plus this 40 mesh screen, we're going to pan out and get the bigger gold out of it. So we're going to do a wet concentration. The cons are wet. I'm going to get a little water in the bucket here. We're just going to pour it into my classifier. And we're going to take this and we're going to shake it around. Shake, shake, shake. We're going to agitate really good. We're going to let all those smaller particles fall through that 40 mesh screen so that when we're all said and done, all we should have left is a little batch of plus 40 mesh material. Now that 40 mesh, if you're new to this stuff, mesh refers to how many holes per square inch there are in that screen. So if there's 4 holes per square inch, that would be a 4 mesh. It would let 1/4 inch and below material fall through it. In 40 mesh, there's 40 holes per 1 inch of that screen, and it only lets things that are smaller than those 40 holes per inch fall out. So this is pretty well classified. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into another bucket just to hold it. We'll stick it in another pan here. I'm going to splash some water in. And that's pretty clean. Yep, still got a little mesh in there. So if we look at our plus 40 cons, you can already see there's a piece of gold sitting right on top that's going to come out of that. So our bigger gold's going to be in here, our smaller gold's going to be in here. This I'm going to transfer into another bucket here shortly so that I can pan this out, get that big gold out of there, and then we'll run this in the blue bowl. Alright, so we're back. As you see, I got a tub prepared. I got a pan down on the bottom. I'm going to use this as my safety pan. I've already put a few drops of jet dry in the water. If you don't know why we do that, jet dry breaks that surface tension in the water and it helps keep the finer gold from floating off. Yes, I know it doesn't make sense. Gold is a very dense, heavy material, but the smaller pieces will float. So by putting a surfactant in there, break down that surface tension, we're going to prevent that gold from hopefully floating off. So let's go ahead and pan down my 40 plus concentrates. We'll get it shook down to the bottom of the pan here. We'll stratify this material. So stratifying the material, what that means is I'm making that material move around because the gold is heavier than everything else that's in this pan right now. It's going to settle to the bottom of the pan. Once we stratified that down, now I can use a little gentle wave washing motion and I can start washing this material off, the lighter material off the top. You can already see some gold starting to poke through there. This is some really, really coarse black sand. So it looks like what I'm going to have to do to start this is I'm actually going to have to get my magnet out. We're going to have to try and get some of these really heavy magnetic materials off here. So basically I'm going to take my little magnet, I'm going to get my material good and wet, I'm going to spread this stuff out in the bottom of the pan, and I'm going to wave the magic magnet wand over the top of the material. I'm going to rinse it pretty well before I pull it out. You can see there's a big wad of all that magnetic material. So that's magnetite. That's one of the 2 main components of our black sand. One of the things about doing this is we got to be really careful that we don't lose any gold as we're using the magnet to come out, because you can see it clumps on there pretty good. So usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it back into a spot on the pan. I'm going to suck it up again, be very gentle about it. I'm going to take it over here and I'm going to drop it in our safety pan. I can come back later, repan that pan and see if we missed anything. So we're just going to go ahead and keep trying to pull some of these heavy magnetic materials out. Really big clump there, we'll drop it. I'll lightly start picking it up again, trying not to induce any gold. We'll drop that in the other pan. And basically this is a wash, rinse, repeat process. So by getting all these big heavy magnetics out of here, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to pan the gold out, because I'm not fighting some other big heavy material in the pan that's not as dense as gold, but is pretty close. And also these big chunky pieces are really kind of difficult to try and pan the gold out of. So we'll just keep wash, rinse, repeat, start pulling these magnetics out of the pan. So again, we'll get a big batch. I'll take it, drop it in the pan. You can see there was a little gold stuck in there. We'll take that out. You can see that gold stayed right on the bottom of the pan. That's kind of what we're after. We don't want to bring gold over to our safety pan, so we're kind of going to go through this very gently and try and get these big particles out of here. You can see I even got a big rock that's stuck to it, so that big rock has a piece of magnetite in it. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and go back to panning. We'll stratify that all back into the corner of the pan again. You'll notice I want to get a really good agitating motion on this. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to move the pan back and forth. We're going to let the water come in a wave, and we're going to let that wave wash material, lighter material off the top. And again, you can see how this black sand, this really heavy black sand, the gold, or I should say the sand, really sticks to the pan. It's very coarse and very heavy, and it likes to stick together. It looks like we're not going to get much to go off that way, so I'm going to reverse the pan. stratify that all down to the side that doesn't have any grooves on it or any riffles. We'll get that stratified into that corner, and then I'm going to very gently start washing my black sands off. You'll see very little bits at a time go. I'm also watching really close. If I see anything that looks like gold starting to slip by, I'm going to have to come back here, stratify again, start pulling some of that lighter material off, and this is just back and forth, back and forth. I think we're just about to where we need to just start rolling it back, because I'm starting to see some of the gold move. Pull some of this lead out of there. We can make that lead go away. Try and pick a couple of the little pieces of lead fragments out of there. All right, so I got that washed down. We'll grab our snuffer bottle, and we're going to squeeze that snuffer bottle out. It's full of water, and I'm just going to come down here and release it, and we're going to suck all that gold right into the snuffer bottle. We'll run through this one more time just to make sure we didn't lose anything. All right, so now that we got that all panned out, it's time to set up our blue bowl so we can work our fine concentrates that we have left in our little bucket here. If you haven't seen the blue bowl before, it consists of basically 3 parts. So you have the bowl itself. The bowl works on a principle of gravity and centrifugal force. The heavy stuff likes to stay on the bottom. The lighter material will work its way up this cone and finally find its way through the hole in the center and fall into the bucket below. We've got 3 legs that go on our orange bucket. It's made to fit on top of a 5-gallon standard bucket. And then the last thing we have is a sump pump with the hose that's going to attach to the blue bowl. One of the things I've done that's a little different is I've modified my pump for my blue bowl so that I can use my my motor control box that I use with the Gold Monster Mini Monster sluice. Works really well. I can control the speed much better than the ball valve that's on the hose fitting that they give you. So this is what I'll be using to control that water flow. So let me go ahead and get started setting this up. So we'll take our 5-gallon bucket, We're going to get a bunch of water in it. For right now, it's kind of just to keep it anchored in my tub. All I have to do is make sure that I've got enough water in my tub that the blue bowl can be completely full, the bucket can be completely full, and my sump pump will continue to work. And I think we may have to add a little extra water in here. So we'll go ahead and fill this orange bucket all the way up. Now we take the clips. You'll notice on the clips that there's a little groove side and then there's a flat side in there. And also inside of the ball that's attached to the threads on the top, there's a slot in there. So I want these grooves, basically they're going to bite on the grooves of the 5-gallon bucket. And then that little ball that the threads are on is going to seat over the top of the bucket. So we're going to go ahead and put those on. We've got 3 of them. Basically they're going to wind up in the end about 120 degrees apart. I'm not going to worry necessarily right now about like starting off with them level, because I don't know what the shape of the ground here is or anything that I'm working on at the moment. The bottom of the blue bowl, we've got 3 little metal legs, and our 3 little metal legs are going to go on top of those plastic threads. Once we have that, the next thing we want to do is make sure that our bowl is level. So all I'm really going to do is take the level, put it on there in one direction. That looks pretty close. It looks like we need to drop this side or raise this side a little bit. Try and get that good and level. I'm going to go the other direction. Looks like this side needs to go down. That side's good. I'm going to go back and forth until everything looks like it's pretty good and level. That's pretty good. We'll go back to the other direction again. Bowl looks pretty level. Now, of course, I'm going to mess this up as soon as I attach the pump to it. So we're going to double check it again once I get the pump attached. So here's our sump pump. We're going to dump that in the water. Get our hose attached. And I need to add a little more water to our bin, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we'll be back in just a second. Okay, we're back. So I re-leveled the bowl with the water running in it. Everything is level and looks good. I've got my motor speed controller set at about a 34 on this speed controller. So again, this is the one that Gold Hog sells with their Mini Monster sluice setup or a high banker setup. It's really nice. Takes a DeWalt battery. You've got a speed control, an on-off button, and runs these little motors really good. So my speed's set to about 34. My water level is running just about where I want it to get started with, maybe just a touch low. Usually we want it 3/4 to 1/2 inch below the lip of the bowl. You can see that centrifugal motion, and it's going to wash the light stuff up that cone and down the hole. So to get my material in there, I'm going to go ahead and shut my motor controller off. And we'll let this water settle down a little bit. As I said, I classified this material down to 40 mesh, so this is our much smaller stuff. It's mostly black sand. There's a little bit of blonde sands in there. So let me get this started distributing. I like to distribute it around the edges. And usually I'm going to take my little brush and I'm going to brush that back to that outside edge. So we'll brush this all back so we get sort of a nice uniform amount of material all the way around the edges of the bowl. Now this blue bowl is really good for getting the fine gold out of your concentrates. And like I said, this is going to be 40 mesh and below, so this is going to be really tiny gold. What we're going to see is once the bowl spins up, this material will start moving. You'll see an interesting sawtooth pattern start to form, and then you'll start to see the fine gold staying on the bottom of the bowl as the sands work their way to the center, spin up that cone, and start falling through. So let's go ahead and start them moving. One thing about the blue bowl is it does require some patience. This is not the fastest method of separating your fines from your cons, but for me, it's one of my favorites. It's a pretty low effort method of doing it. Looks like I got a leaf that blew in. So now you can start to see the sands work their way up that cone and find their way down into the bucket below. You can already start to see some of the fine gold that's just left hanging out there in the blue on the bowl while these sands are working their way out. So the gold is much heavier than any of the black sands, so we're using the speed and the centrifugal force of the water to pick those sands up. But the gold, even if it gets picked up, won't ride all the way up the cone or won't make it over the lip of the cone that's here. It'll actually stop and it may go spinny round and round, but it'll never actually exit the bowl. My water level's getting just a little bit too high, so let me turn my controller down. Just a touch. So at some point, most of our sands are going to be gone. We're not seeing a lot of progress coming up the cone. So another one of the tricks that I will do is I will take my snuffer bottle and get it full of water. And in the direction of the water flow, without interrupting it too much, I'm going to take the water, I'm going to give little puffs and just puff that material away from that center ring and off of that lip, and allow it to process some more and maybe get some of that fine material that's left to actually go up and over the edge of the bowl. Still running my speed controller about a 34, 35 on this speed controller, and getting really nice water flow at this point. And looking in there, we're starting to see lots of fine gold building up. So we're just about ready to clean this out and snuffer things up. I think that's as good as we're going to get it for the moment. So we'll let this water settle down a bit. I'm going to go ahead and brush this away from the cone a little. And that, when I snuffer it up, is going to let me kind of differentiate between the fine gold and the junk that's in there. So now we'll take our snuffer bottle and we'll just start sucking the gold off the bottom of the bowl. You can see there's some pretty fine gold in there. The bowl does a pretty good job of getting even this little tiny flower gold separated out. See another piece right there. I think we got most of it out of there. And that's how you run the blue bowl and recover what's left of that fine gold that was in those concentrates. Alright, so we're done with the clean out. I got everything dried up and finished panned off and all ready to go. So let's weigh it up and see what we got. Go ahead and tear the scale out. Well, it looks like 0.259 grams. Not a bad day on the creek, that's for sure. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll be trying to do some more as time goes by of our adventures out in the creeks and looking for gold. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to get our viewership up for our prospecting videos. So, all right, for Andy and Barbara on the creek, we'll see you again next time.